Morning, everyone. Danny Wacker here. Okay, let's talk about 550 Mark II chainsaws. Someone asked me on a video, different video I did about Mark II 550s or 550s in general. So let's go over this one. This is one I just ported 3 of them. This one here is the third one. These are from Wicked River Outfitters from Pink Mountain, BC. Travis Booker. So, buddy, this is your third saw done. I do suggest putting the flock type air filters on, not the nylon ones, when you get these saws. I'll make note to that when Johnny ships them to you. I think they do come with two air filters. So let's talk about 550s. 550s, I've been kind of knowing. There's my cylinder done, ready to go. Exhaust port done, transfers done, some intake work. I'm going to put this back together as I'm talking to you. So 550s originally and the 500 series, a lot of people are bad mouthing them because they've had some bad seals, bad bearings. And yes, I totally agree. They have had some issues, but when they do run right, they're awesome. Super powerful. A friend of mine runs these in all his tree service company. Yeah, I think he's got about 4 of them. One he just brought back today, but it's got like maybe 2 years on it. He runs 24-inch bar, low pro 3/8 on it for chunking down trees, and he loves them. They're super smooth, snappy, and powerful. I've done a couple different ways of porting them, but I found just a few degrees on the exhaust, a few degrees on the intake, and it works for me. I always replace the base gaskets, even though they're brand new, because these ones, they're kind of a weird material, like a steel with a rubber thing around it. So I replace them all the time when I'm doing a new saw. Okay, so I just put the intake back on, and I wanted to I'll show you something when I put the carb on, how the carb locks in with this little tab here. It's very important. Some guys put them together, and I have done it as well. I've made mistakes in life where the carb isn't locked in there properly, so you go to run it, and it's sucking air, but it compensates for it. It'll still run, but it won't run right. You'll have problems. So here we go. Pistons on, cylinders here. We get the cylinder bolts on. So this is the Mark II, and this has a lot of changes to it. I've had a couple issues with a couple of them, and what it was actually the wiring. So if you get one of them that's dying out and not running right, you've done everything else to it, pressure vac, compression test, reset the auto tune, check your wiring harness. Some of them were coming where the wires for the auto tune comes out by the flywheel. Some of them were chafing in there and arcing out. Then you got to replace the whole coil and wiring harness. It comes as one piece. So just watch that if you're working on them. Okay, let's get our cylinder bolts are on. Let's get a little bit of assembly oil on here. I just use 2-stroke oil on my piston and on the cylinder. Okay, hope everyone's having a nice day. Man, it's May 14th already. Can you imagine that? Or can you believe that? It's the middle of May already. There's already going to be a fire ban here apparently, because we do have a lot of fires already in BC again. Wildfires happening already. So sorry, Americans, about the smoke coming down, but god darn it, man. These fires that are happening right now already were all caused by humans. Not a lightning strike or anything. So darn it, people. Don't be lighting campfires if you don't know what you're doing, or throwing cigarette butts out. You're costing people's lives and homes and a lot of forest being damaged. Okay, our cylinder's on the piston. Now I'm going to put it down and torque the cylinder bolts down with a T27 driver. This saw, you can pretty much rebuild it with a T27 driver and a T20 and a 13 mil socket to take the flywheel nut off, and a proper clutch tool. Pretty easy. I like Torx screws. I love Torx wrenches. I never strip them. Never strip the bolts really. Great setup. Okay, this is a non-heat version. You can get them in this heated version if you're in the winter areas or in cold climates. You know, they are made in Sweden and it's cold there. And the auto tune works pretty good in the cold. I gotta admit, they've been pretty darn good. These are probably the best 50cc saw going. People are going like, well, what are you torquing that cylinder to? I just tighten it down good. I've done so many of them, but it's probably around 120 inch-pounds, maybe around there. Okay, double check them. Just go around twice. Okay, bam, bam, where you go. Screw your cylinder bolt back on, the cylinder mount bolt, anti-vibe bolt. Yeah, you know, any new model saws, it always seems to be a couple years till they work all the bugs out of them all over the world. This saw, like I say, has had a lot of changes. And you got to remember, this 50cc class is huge in the world. You know, like here we run a lot of big saws because we got big wood. But all the rest of the world, you know, they got smaller stuff. So these smaller displacement saws are very important to have and very usable or needed in the other areas of the world. So they spent a lot of time on these mid cc saws, 50cc up to 65 kind of range, let's say. And they're doing a wonderful job with it. The 550 Mark II, the 562 Mark II, all good. Okay, here's your carburetor. First we're going to plug in the auto tune back in. You guys can see this okay? I'll just show you how I do it all here. I know you don't get right focused in, but you get the general idea. Okay, plug the auto tune back in. Set it back into its little harness here. Or its little holder, I should say. Okay, check your 3 wires are in the groove. Okay, that's been back in its holder. Now, just make sure your purge line and your throttle line isn't in the way. Get the carb into its little horns in the bottom there, where your fresh air goes in, and give it a good push in. You should hear it snap just like I just heard it there. So this little black piece under here of the intake manifold, you got to snap the carb into that piece, okay? Get that snapped in there, and then it's held in place. Now you can do up your throttle cable again. They're simple. These look a little complex, but after you do a bunch, they're easy. Okay, fuel line's on, throttle's on. Okay, let's get our air filter adapter now. I got the purge valve just laying out here so you can get your lines hooked up better. So let's get the air filter adapter lined up. Just watch you get the throttle or the choke lever in this proper spot for the switch here, above the little piece of steel spring thing here and the actuator itself. Okay, get that in, kind of get it in place, hooked in there, and run a couple bolts in right away so it doesn't move around on you. So get your car bolts, run them in, just so they start threading in, right? Just so it holds it all in place so you don't get nothing misaligned. Okay, give it a few turns. And then next we're going to start hooking up our lines. First though, I like to put these little ends of the filter adapter into the rubbers so then everything's lined up properly. Put that back in there. Okay, now that's in there right. Okay, let's get our purge valve line, run it over, get it in the little grooves of the air filter holder, and hook it up to the purge pump, to the long spigot on the purge pump, the long one versus the short one. Your return line or your other pressure line goes in there. Okay, let's get this poked in back into our spot. Little birdie. Okay, come on. Always when you're filming, it's hard to get something in right. Come on. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that was not quite cooperating too good. Why not? Let's get that over there a bit. Come on, snap in. Why isn't it snapping in? Huh. Maybe I should put it in the right spot. Okay, that few lines on. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. On the wrong angle to dangle. Okay, now let's get our other line on that feeds the fuel that you pull up from the tank into the carburetor to purge it. I use these hemostats a lot so you don't damage any of the lines and poke holes in them, as you can with a regular needle nose with the sharp ends. Okay, so that's on. Now, let's tighten our carburetor before we forget. Like I say, I've done it once myself wrong, and now I make sure I double check it all the time. Tighten them up good. Not a D8 cat, you don't need to over torque them, just a nice solid turn in. Okay, now let's get our switch wire and our auto tune wire hooked back up. Yeah, these got great cylinders on them. It's so clean. The porting in them is really nice. They're not there's no like little jagged edges or anything in them. Everything's really smooth. They're finished really well from the factory. The Molly cylinder, which is the best in my opinion. You can't beat them. Okay, wires hooked back up. Auto tune wire hooked back up. There you go. That's the carburetor back on. Plug in. I'll just recheck that I tightened it. I'm sure I did. Okay. And we got to put our little partition wall back in here that stops the heat from transferring to the carburetor, which is the original 550s and 562s had a lot of problems with heat getting to the carburetor. That's why they were on a restart method. They came up with a hot start procedure because they had a lot of problems, but they've changed all that. Like I say, with a new model, they always do changes within the first couple of years, and everything works fine again. All right, get your T27 driver, get that one bolt in for this heat shield. The second bolt in, and there you go. This thing's back together. We'll put our air filter on top so nothing gets in there. But this is the nylon type one, good for winter type use and ice and snow, but you should run the flock one, the furry one, for extreme conditions. I'm going to suggest to the customer that he does it. Okay. Yep, put that on. And we can put our muffler back on. So anyways, with 550s, 550 Mark IIs, if you're having problems with them, you know, as a mechanic or a shop, you need to be doing your proper service procedures. Compression test, air vacuum test. Then you can download it, see if you have any error codes on the Husqvarna service site. And if you do, then it kind of gives you an idea what to look for. But doing the compression test and air and vacuum test, you're pretty much on your way to solving a problem if you have a problem with it. Sure, you could still have to be a mechanic. It could be some dirt in the carburetor, or a plugged fuel filter, or a rip in the fuel line. So you want to be checking that stuff too. Pressurizing your fuel line from your tank to your carb. Checking all the basic stuff out. Then reset it back to 0 on the computer, Husqvarna computer system. And then go run it, you know, make your, I let it idle for maybe 10 minutes, then go make 3 or 4 hard cuts with it. And just see how it runs. If it's idling good and working perfect, then you probably have solved it. But then you also, you know, the customer's got to get it, and he's going to work it hard, so hopefully it works fine. So, yeah, they've come a long ways. They've, like I say, they changed the bearings now, changed the seals. They have a different seal and a protector on the flywheel side. Yeah, great saws, man. Like I say, I got a few buddies running them here in Bigwood. They love them. With the 24-inch, either Low Pro 3/8 or 325. Can I say? That's about it to say about them. So, Travis Booker, your 3 saws are done. I'll get them down to Johnny. He'll ship them off to you, and you'll enjoy them. Have a great day. Keep your saw on the wood, sticking ass rubbing around. Go Canucks, go tonight. Bye now.